This podcast is brought to you by Miley for Men and Miley Luxury Cosmetics Organic Skincare Products. Available now on Etsy. Scan QR code.
As I like to say, another sunny day in LA. So what we're going to talk about today, coming to you live from North Hollywood, NoHo, as we like to call it. My producer's under the weather, so I'm just going to wing it. So let's see. Let me pick a topic. All right, cool. Yeah, I just was talking to somebody about this, about writing for free and why you should never do it if you're not going to do it for yourself. So let's talk about that on the other side. Thanks for tuning in to Straight to the Shit. So let's get straight to the shit. It's like I said, my producer's a little under the weather. So Dina, hurry up and get better, ma. I need you out here in these streets with me. So here we go. Another episode to help you navigate the treacherous waters or the snake pits called Hollywood. All right. One of the biggest mistakes people make, I don't care, and it shouldn't happen with seasoned writers, but some may do it. Whether you're a seasoned writer or a creator or a writer breaking into the business, working for free is the worst thing you could do. It's hard enough sitting there and doing it, like writing. The hardest part about writing is to actually sit there and do it. And it's a very isolated profession, and it takes a lot of energy out of you to come up with these ideas. So if you want to sit up there and devalue yourself or devalue your work, the one way to do that is to write for free. If you're not a commissioned writer, meaning somebody hasn't paid you to do it, we call that writing on spec, and that's short for speculation. Speculating that you may sell it one day. But if you writing a producer's idea, or let's say a producer hires you or says they want to hire you, but they don't have any money, or they do have the money, but they want to see how naive, gullible, or desperate you are, and you go ahead and do it, then we call that writing on spec, but we always say don't spec to get paid. All right, because if a producer or someone claiming to be a producer, which is the most vague title you could ever have in this business, if they can't afford to offer you an option agreement with some real money attached to it, then they can't afford a production. And it doesn't matter if it's an indie producer, a no-name producer, or even a producer who has some credits under their belt. Years ago, I had a meeting at a company called Original Films. Original Films puts out the Fast and the Furious series. And this is before those movies came out. Actually, it was right before the first one came out. I had a meeting, a real cool executive named Brad Luff. And he was, my manager set up that meeting. And he had liked the script that I wrote, but his boss was on the fence about buying it. But he liked my writing, so he wanted to meet with me. So I met with him, and he had a project that he wanted somebody to write on. It was based on an article in New Yorker magazine, which I would not say the name of. And I know that they had hired other people to attempt to write this because he told me. But as he's telling me the story, showing me trailers of movies they had in the can, meaning that they were done. One of them was Not Another Teen Movie. One was that Ice Cube movie, Torque, when he's on the motorcycle. So he showed me those trailers and was sitting in the office and he's talking about everything he wants to do. And I just interrupted him. And I said, yo, I need a check, man. I don't write for free. And so he said, okay, let's see about getting you that check. So I said, okay, I'm going to go home, write a treatment. I'll send it back to you and you go see about getting me that check. I wrote the treatment, filed it at the copyright office so I could own it, that particular version of it. Sent it to him. And needless to say, the check never came. So I went back to my manager's office and he said, how did the meeting go? And I said, he ain't even offer me $1. And my manager said, my manager was sitting there. He said, what? You would have wrote for $1? I said, hell no. And then he looked at me and said, oh, okay, I get it. I said, that's my point. He just wanted me to write for free. I don't do that, man. So there are situations where it can even be a well-known producer for a legitimate company. And they will still, in a way, see if they could get you to write something for free. And from coming from music, you know, understand how treacherous that business is. You know, I had an entertainment lawyer named Matt Durnan, and he sat down and he taught me a lot of things I wanted to know when I had my first indie label back in New York. And he said, if you ever want to know if a conversation is real, just bring up money. It's the first thing you do, just bring up money. So if I went to a meeting for that, he said, just ask for a P&D deal, which is a press and a distribution deal. And then watch the conversation change. And that's what happened. So I just took that same attitude and I brought it to this business. So when people contact me, and it's always a referral, I call nobody. It's always a referral. And when people call me and they say, I have a project, so-and-so referred me to you, yeah, how much did you charge? I said, I started 6 figures, man. Conversation always changes. And the funny thing is, I never tell them the exact amount. I just say 6 figures. Because I know if they don't have the money, they're not going to do it. They can't afford it. And oftentimes, it's kind of what you want. You don't want to be tasked with writing somebody else's ideas and they can't pay you. But Brad Luff was a cool guy, man. He was a real cool guy, man. And when I decided I wanted to manage, I needed to have references to get listed in the Hollywood Creative Directory, which at the time was the Bible of the industry for like contacts. And he's one of the producers who vouched for me. And anytime I had a project, I could call him up, no matter what company he went to, and I could send it to him. You know, so he was a cool guy. So there are times where, though nothing may come out of it, as far as the writing is concerned, you do make good connections and people that you could pick up the phone and call, and they could still look at some shit if you got it. So, R.I.P. to Brad, real cool guy. And so now let me contradict myself a little bit, right? I said you should never write for free. But there are times when you should or you could write for free, as long as you know how to own it. So if you're going to write for yourself, obviously, you're writing for free. Like I said, that's on speculation, you're going to sell it. And you may have somebody who you really like or a situation you may really like. And you may do a handshake with somebody. And you really want to do the story. And you want to get on, or just a friend you want to help. So yeah, you could go ahead and write that script. But the one thing you do is you claim ownership and authorship of it. And you do that by filing it at the Copyright Office, the U.S. Copyright Office. And don't let anybody tell you different. If nobody's paying you money and you have not signed a piece of paper, and don't ever sign a piece of paper where somebody's saying, I'm hiring you, or you are a writer for hire, and they have not exchanged any funds. And only you know your worth. So when I quote people 6 figures, that's exactly what it is. It's called a quote. All right. And nobody's ever going to tell me my value, like ever. So, but you just have to know to do that. So there are situations where, yeah, you know, if you want to, but just understand the business, understand how that works. And anytime somebody asks you, just make sure you stand on that business, man. All right. You don't do favors like that without owning it. So there is a way to own it. And I will talk about that in another episode when I talk about the copyright versus filing something at the WGA, which is the Writers Guild. So I'm contradicting myself by saying never write for free. But there are times when you actually can, if you just know how to own it.